Main problem that arose and which led to the binary translation technique was the problem that occurred with the trap and emulate method. What happened was, when pop of command was used, that is the pop flag command was used. This pop flag command is a command that loads a flag register from contents of the stack. When the CPU is in the privileged mode, that is in the kernel mode, all flags are replaced from the stack. But when the CPU is in the user mode, only some flags are replaced from the stack and some are ignored. This is because no trap was generated if the popif, that is a pop flag command, is executed in the user mode. This was a issue with the trap and emulate method, and this was the reason for the binary translation technique to be used. If the guest virtual CPU is in the user mode, the guest can run its instructions natively on the physical CPU. This was the technique of binary translation in detail. That is, when guest virtual CPU is in user mode, it runs the instructions natively in the physical CPU itself. But when the guest vCPU is in kernel mode, then the guest believes it to be in the kernel mode itself. So here is a diagram that explains vCPU in kernel mode. Virtual machine monitor VMM or the hypervisor first examines the instructions in guest mode and executes it in a virtual kernel mode. Before this, what happens is, it reads the VMM or the hypervisor reads next few instructions of the guest through the guest program counter, and next it executes in the virtual kernel mode. This is what happens, and these instructions are checked, and they are of two types: the special instructions and the non-special, that is the safe instructions and the unsafe instructions. So as seen here, the non-special instructions, that is the safe instructions, run natively in the physical CPU itself, but the special instructions or the unsafe instructions are translated and the equivalent new instructions are generated, and then they are converted to a executable code in this similar way. So example for this is the flag command, which was a problem with the trap and emulate method, is changed in the virtual CPU here in the binary translation. Though this binary translation is good for some methods, it also has its own issues. The first issue is that the entire process executes correctly, but the performance was poor. So to increase the performance in binary translation, VMware method was used. Here the technique called caching was introduced. So to know what caching is, we must know what cache is. Cache is a type of memory and it has a high speed of data access. So caching means the process of storing and accessing data from a cache. So this is caching. Now let us come into the issue again. So VMware uses this caching technique to increase the performance of binary translation. Here what happens is, the replacement code for each special instruction, that is the unsafe instruction that needs to be translated, is cached here. So all the later executions run from the translation cache, and in this method, translation is done only once and no translation is done again and again. All later execution runs from the translated cache itself. So by this way, the performance of the binary translation was increased.